and I just applied. I didn't have any political connections.
Mr. Trump, as everyone knows, and as I personally appreciate, you're very honest and outspoken about a lot of different things.
Something doesn't quite add up here.
It's time for Breaking Absurdity, your daily reminder that this is not normal. Brought to you by It's Not Satire. Subscribe today to catch every ridiculous moment.
Today we're looking at Karoline Leavitt, a viral interview, resurfaced clips, and one small detail that has people questioning everything. Watch this closely. Right before she says she has no political connections, her ankle rotates, presses into the ground, almost locking into place.
No, it was an amazing experience, and I just applied. I didn't have any political connections.
It's subtle, and on its own, it doesn't mean anything. But online, people noticed. Not because it's unusual, but because of when it happens.
And is anyone in here a White House intern or want to be a White House intern? We just opened the application, whitehouse.gov/intern.
The statement itself is simple. She applied for a White House internship with no connections, no political background, and it just worked out. And that's a powerful story because it positions her as an outsider, someone who broke in on merit alone.
We're going to start with Karoline Leavitt, 18-year-old college freshman.
But then this resurfaces.
Class, so we're going to let her go first.
Absolutely.
Mr. Trump, as everyone knows, and as I personally appreciate, you're very honest and outspoken about a lot of different things. As my father would say, you call a spade a spade. However, many people criticize you for this, saying that you're merciless, ruthless, cold-hearted. What would you like to say to people who think you're too harsh to be the next president of the United States?
It's such a great question. And I had a woman the other day say, Mr. Trump, I love you, I'm voting for you, but are you a nice enough person to be president? I said, you know what? I really am a nice person. I give tremendous amounts of money away. I love to help people. I love people. And you see from upstairs how many people showed up to see me. It's not going to be, though, this time about niceness. It's going to be about competence.
An 18-year-old Karoline Leavitt asking a question at town hall with Donald Trump. And it's not just a question. It's framed with praise. It sets him up. It positions him positively before he even answers. Which raises a simple question. What counts as a connection? Because technically, applying online can be true, but proximity matters. Being in the room, being on the mic, engaging directly with a future president, that's not nothing. And that's where the tension comes from. And this isn't an isolated moment.
That was a piece of advice one of my predecessors, Dana Perino, gave to me before I took this job. She said, you always want to be the most well-read person in the room. And I try to be every day. But Donald Trump always is. That man does not miss a story, let me tell you. He's always reading the papers and watching the TV. He doesn't miss anything anyone says.
That line went viral because it doesn't just sound supportive. It sounds absolute. And that's where audience start to notice a pattern. The phrasing, the certainty, the delivery. These aren't accidental. They're part of a communication style, one that blends confidence with loyalty and very little hesitation. You see it again in how she describes political events.
I came to D.C., I worked in President Trump's White House in the first term, started as an intern, and then, unfortunately, Joe Biden was installed as President of the United States.
Not elected, installed. A single word that carries an entire worldview and signals alignment with a much broader narrative. Then there's this moment.
However, voter fraud is incredibly rare. According to the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative database, by the way, there have only been a few hundred cases of voter fraud since 1982 out of hundreds of millions of votes. Additionally, according to the Brennan Institute of Justice, there are 21.8 million Americans who do not have easy access to proofs of citizenship. So my question to you is it worth it to risk millions of Americans from voting in order to prevent a few hundred cases of voter fraud?
First of all, thank you for the question. No need to boo. It's an honest question. I'm happy to give you an honest answer.
A student asks a question, citing conservative data, questioning voter fraud claims. The crowd responds positively. They're cheering, but the response, no need to boo.
And why are you okay with any voter fraud in the United States of America?
And this is where things get interesting, because what's happening in the room and what's being acknowledged don't quite match. The crowd isn't hostile, but the moment is reframed as if it is, subtle but noticeable. And then we circle back to the origin story.
But a colleague of mine at school, she was a White House intern under President Obama. And I remember her talking about it in class, and I thought, that sounds really cool. Like, I want to be a White House intern, so I just went online and applied.
She talks about a classmate who interned under Barack Obama and how that moment made her think, that sounds really cool, which is interesting because it shows her early awareness of the system and how access works.
Karoline Leavitt.
And during her congressional run, that contrast became the focus. An attack ad resurfaced informal content, presenting a very different version of the same person. Less polished,
Listen up, hoe bag.
less controlled, same individual, different context.
You know, mooching off her parents, running up huge credit card debt, woke, immature, and irresponsible. Karoline Leavitt for Congress? No, not a chance. Defending Main Street is responsible for the content of this advertising.
To be clear, none of this proves intent, but it does show how quickly small details combined with old footage can reshape a narrative. Because once people see both sides, the current version and the archived one, they start connecting the dots themselves. And that's where perception and reality start to diverge, because once you see both versions, it's hard to look at either the same way again.
And there you have it, another day in American politics where absurdity meets reality, and sometimes reality can't keep up. If you want more of this, you know the drill. Subscribe, follow, hit the bell, and join me for the next round of Breaking Absurdity. I'm It's Not Satire, and trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next.